Hi, I'm Joe Saunders with Miniature Landscape Hobbies, and in this episode, we're going to build modular roads. Over the years, I must have built 50 or 60 road sections of scatter terrain, and in truth, I was not really happy with any of them. Now, if you're new to wargaming terminology, scatter terrain is scenery on separate bases that can be basically moved around on your spread. If you're looking for modularity, so you don't end up playing the same game over and over, you really need modular scatter terrain for your roads. As I see it though, modular roads have some qualities that are just plain boring to make. And let's face it, you'd rather spend your time making cool buildings or geographical features than flat asphalt. With these considerations, I knew this video was going to be a big one. Because of this series is a two-parter. The video you're watching today will deal with the basic skills to design and texture the bases. The next video will expand on this and add the fine details to build interest for the road sections. So with all that said, let's get started. Please remember to check out my Etsy store. A lot of the projects I feature on this channel are for sale there. Until May 1st, 2021, I have a 20% off sale. To claim the coupon, take the link in the video description. To start the process, I get some 1/2-inch thick foam insulation and using a fresh blade, cut it into 3-inch wide by 6-inch long lengths. This will form the basic shape of the road. Turning these pieces on their side, I decide that the 1/2-inch thickness is too much, so I carefully use a box cutter to cut them lengthwise, so I have 2 1/4-inch thick sections for each 3x6 piece. Where some of the cuts are rough, I take a file and sand down the bottom so the piece sits flat. If the piece already had some holes or some punctures in it, I left those to build character for later. Now I used hot glue to adhere the rectangle of styrofoam to the top of a piece of cardboard. I cut the cardboard to be 6 inches long, so it was as long as the road, by 5 inches wide, so it was a little wider and left a border on either side of the road section. Where the section didn't sit flush at the end, I grabbed my file and filed it down. If the road section had marks in the surface or already had holes punctured in it, I took a knife and I cut them out to make them into craters. I also scored some cracks and other marks into the surface using a pen. Earlier I had gone over to Thingiverse and downloaded the STL file for a rolling pin that produced a brick texture. I sized it to be 3 inches wide, so it matched my road sections, and prepared it, supported it, and printed it off. Once the resin was cured, I took the roller and positioning it over each piece of styrofoam, carefully rolled it across the surface, applying plenty of pressure. This embossed a brickwork pattern in the surface of each piece of foam. Now for each road section, I cut out 4 pieces of thin cardboard, 2 that were 1/2 inch wide and 2 that were 1/4 inch wide. Then, using hot glue, I went ahead and glued them down to the base, with the 1/2 inch wide ones at the bottom and the 1/4 inch wide ones at the top, so they sat flush with the side of the road. This would create a sort of embankment along the side. Now I got out some masking tape and it applied it along the sides to create a gentle slope leading up to the edge of the road and to seal off the edges so that they didn't swell when I applied various glues and paints. Now I decided it was time to put the details down on the base. So I went and did my usual thing and got a bunch of pieces of old sprues, some extra support sections that were cut off some old print jobs, a bunch of cut-offs of old pieces of styrofoam that I had cut into various shapes to form rocks, some strips of basswood, matchsticks, and then I printed on my 3D printer these manhole covers. Grabbing a base, I started putting pieces down on them. Using hot glue, I adhered styrofoam to the side to form rocks. And with a compass, I measured the circumference of each manhole cover and placed it roughly in the middle of each board section. Then I traced it out, cut out the center with a chisel-shaped knife, and hot glued those into place. Generally, I was looking to do anything to add some levels of interest to the sections and to establish a sense of scale and that these road sections were actually in use. I knew these road sections were going to take a lot of abuse during wargaming, and I also knew that I'd probably end up spray painting them, so I figured I better seal them. So I went ahead and put some Mod Podge gloss in a cup and mixed it with some black paint and some water until I had a thin paint mixture, and then went ahead and brushed it over each section. I then let this dry. This was to seal the styrofoam primarily against the propellant in any spray paints I might use, because spray paint propellant can dissolve the foam. With a layer of Mod Podge over top, I knew it would not only be strengthened, but it would be safe from the propellant, and I wouldn't end up melting all of my previous work. It was now time to texture the base, and I decided to do this using the rubbing alcohol method. This is one of those staple methods that I use all the time. I cover it in many different videos. I'll put a link up to one of them so that you can get more of the specifics. But basically, using Mod Podge or white glue, you lay down a thick base of glue, apply your grit to the top, then using some rubbing alcohol, pour the rubbing alcohol using a pipette over the top so that that breaks the surface tension on the glue, and then recoat it with another layer of white glue or Mod Podge. Now, it's early March, and I live in ski country in Ontario, Canada, so I didn't think I was going to be able to apply any spray paint to these. But fortunately, we had a warm day, which makes my life a lot easier because honestly, I didn't want to brush paint and undercoat on all these sections. So I went out, got out my handy spray can of matte black paint, and sprayed each section to undercoat them. After the primer had dried, I brought the sections inside and laid them out on my board to dry fit them together. In a few spots, paint or glue had caused the edges to swell a bit, so using my file, I filed them back so everything fit nicely. And now at this point, I had 12 different road sections, all of which would fit together fairly well, and all in boring basic black. So, you're wondering how all this is going to turn out? Well, I'm wondering too, because I have 12 separate sections that I have to prepare, all with unique details. So I'll need to dry brush them, paint the details, and still put the landscaping on, while trying to make them visually very interesting. So this will have to wait for the next episode. So stay tuned, we'll get back to it and finish off this project. In the meantime, I'd like to thank you for watching. Running Miniature Landscape Hobbies is a lot of fun, and I really appreciate all my viewers. If you haven't subscribed yet, please remember to. And remember, until we come back to finish this project, keep building life in miniature.